Hi folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. I recently did a report on fishing at the causeway at Wilson Hill where they've opened up restricted water for 2 weeks for fishermen to really go and have a fishing paradise, I believe. And one of the things that I found was, I guess I learned something I'd never before known. For years I've talked to you about the new phenomena of these great big lures, handmade lures that people pay $300, $400 a piece. And yes, if you never heard those shows, that is the truth. I've watched it at the sports shows that we go to in the winter. And people will line up. They'll line up for blocks just for a chance to buy these big lures. Well, when we were fishing, my buddy and I were fishing this new wonderful area that's been opened up for a couple of weeks along Wilson Hill. Russ took out this giant spinnerbait. It was all pink blade, pink skirt, pink everything. And on the end of that, he put on a great big long paddle tail that was pink. So all of a sudden, he's got this unbelievable bait that's the size of a pizza almost, that's all pink, that he throws out in the water. And I'm thinking, what is he up to now? And it wasn't long before there was a vicious strike. In fact, the strike was visible. This giant pike came out of the water, up into the air, and landed on top of that bait, and the battle was on. Rust ended up losing that fish, but 2 casts later, he was hooked to another great big fish. Now, here's the thing. We'd been fishing for a few hours. We caught lots of nice fish. We were thrilled with our day, and this was something we didn't expect. Number one, I didn't think any fish in that water was big enough to hit this conglomeration. And then more and more fish did the same thing. So we didn't have another pink bait for me, but I had another big spinnerbait that was chartreuse and white, and Russ gave me another long paddle tail that he had that my buddy Dave Swanson had made for us to try for big muskies. So he puts this on the end of my spinnerbait, and we called it a concoction because there weren't any 2 colors that matched. So I throw this thing out there with almost like, none of this can be really true. And bam, I have this vicious strike. And now I'm on to fish. For the next 2 hours, Rust and I caught a number of not only big northern pike, and I mean really big, 10 to 15 pounds. I'm not exaggerating, monsters. But we also were catching huge largemouth bass, and some that weren't huge, but mostly really big ones, bigger than what we've been catching on the other lures. And so I always thought that whole adage is, well, you use great big baits, you're going to catch a great big fish, because I've caught lots of great big fish on little bitty baits. But no, this was a discovery, and it was so profound that I thought, I'll never look at fishing the same again. I've got a whole new way of looking at this, and if I want to catch some of these really big fish, maybe I ought to drink the Kool-Aid that tells us that the bigger bait we use is going to catch a bigger fish. It really did work. And it worked. This wasn't just a fluke. This is something that happened over and over for us. And I thought, oh my gosh, I got to let people know this. This is profound. And maybe the very thing I've been poo-hooing was it's actually real. These fish, you wouldn't think their mouth would open up big enough to bite something like this, but it does. And in another report, I'm going to tell you about a bass that I caught that I still don't believe. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.